What is up, guys? I'm your friendly web war fanatic, and D20 just made this video called "Are Older Heroes Becoming Obsolete?" And this is actually a topic that I'm super duper passionate about. If you guys ever talked to me on the Reddit or the Discord, you guys know that it's my opinion that Marvel Champions has no power creep, and I've made shorts about it before of why I think that the core set heroes stand the test of time. So D20 made this awesome video, and basically he's just asking an open-ended question to the community what we think, if we think that Marvel Champions does have power creep, and basically what that kind of means for the game. So I definitely recommend you guys check out his video if you haven't already, but you probably have. So this will just be my response to it and me giving my opinion. I've already watched it, but I really want to give my take on it. So I did put the video at 1.5 speed, and I'll just be skipping and pausing on parts I want to comment on. So let's go ahead and get started.
This video is an open-ended question. I don't have an answer for it. I don't have a solution for it. It's just an observation. And I don't know if it's a good one or a bad one. But basically, are older heroes becoming obsolete? Maybe. This all kind of came about because I was talking in the Discord, which I'm not part of. Join down below. There's a link there. But I was talking in the Discord, and somebody was talking about how Snowwolf, I think it was you. Was talking about how they recently got Quicksilver for the first time. They're playing it, and they just kind of felt meh about Quicksilver. Nothing great. And Quicksilver's whole thing when he first came out was the whole after you use one of his basic powers, you ready him up. And what's kind of cool with him is that you basically do a bunch of always be runnings, and you have to build him out and then use always be runnings, right? So can these go back? Yeah, okay. So, for example, if you get, friction resistance was also a really good part too, but you get hyper perception, which gives him +1 thwart. You do the see now thing, which is +1 attack, right? I think there's one that gives him +1 defense too. Yeah, accelerate reflexes. And then he's like a 2/2/2 hero and does all this stuff. And then, if you add it on top of maximum velocity, like it's a really cool thing and whatever, but there is like this build out thing you gotta do. And he was kind of like, yeah, it's fine, but like it's just like a lot of work. Versus X23, half the work is done, right? X23 maybe doesn't get the 2/2/2 stat line. She's only a 2/1/2 stat line, but she's still bonkers the way she works with her claws, and that she can ready up when she takes damage.
Okay, so I think that X23 and Quicksilver, they are similar because they both have that readying mechanic, but yeah, I think they're a little bit different as well. So I think D20 hit it right on the head when he says that X23 doesn't need that startup time that Quicksilver needs to kind of set up his board, right? I'm not going to say who I think is stronger or weaker, but I think that definitely if you're just starting out in the scenario, X23 doesn't need that. She just ramps right up. She can just swing for a lot or thwart for a lot immediately. But I do think that Quicksilver has the higher potential, which balances them out. So even though he's a much older hero, I think that whenever you fully built out your board, the damage that he can do in one turn is still one of the highest, if not the highest, in the game. So I think the reason why his potential is so much higher is because he has so many copies of that always be running, and he has the resource and the economy to pay for it. Yeah, so I think that that's a good comparison to make, but it's still a little bit more nuanced than just saying that X23 is stronger, because it kind of depends on the scenario. Most of the time she'll feel stronger, right? If you're facing Rhino or Claw or Ultron, I think that X23 is stronger. But if you're facing someone like Magneto or Ronin, I think that the question or their strength becomes a little bit closer, because against these tougher villains, you need to set up your board. It's a little bit more difficult to rush them down. Well, maybe not Ronin. I think that X23 can probably rush down Ronin. But yeah, I do think that against the higher difficulty villains, you would have to plan out your board a little bit longer, and that might be where Quicksilver can shine a little bit more. So I don't think that he's been absolutely power crept by X23, but I can definitely see why a lot of people in the community would feel that way, because for a lot of scenarios, I think that X23 is the easier option to play and easier option to pick. Okay, I'm gonna skip a little bit here till he gets to Spider-Man. Okay, so here we are.
I feel the same exact thing when we talk about Spider-Man. For those that know, love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is one of my favorite heroes in this game, but in the...
Yes, D20's favorite Marvel comic book character, I believe, is Spider-Man. So he is a man of culture, a man of taste. Anyone that loves Spider-Man is someone that has a lot of good taste.
Core set is kind of lacking because the only way you're really removing threat is through Spider Tracer, right? Like he thwarts for one, which is nothing, whatever, but Spider Tracer is the way you're doing it. They have done since that 2 different heroes that I think are better versions of Spider-Man. And one of them is Miles Morales. Miles Morales just has a better stat line with 222 threat removal, right? Stunning, confusing things is always strong, really good. But the other thing too is if we remember what he does, okay, swing in, for example, remove 4 threat from a scheme. If you used a mental resource, you get to spider camouflage, which of course I have it on the wrong thing. Spider camouflage is when you would give Spider-Man tough stats and you would confuse an enemy, right? So like 2 for 4 threat removal is amazing, but if you use the right resource, it gives your tough stats at the very least, even if you're going against steady or stalwart villains. 2 for 4 is already better than normal Spider-Man, right? Web shot doesn't do as much damage, except you could do the Venom Blast ability if you use the energy, the energy resource, which does another 2 damage and stuns the enemy. So at least then it's a 2 for 6 damage, right? Which is close to 3 for 8. I mean, that's pretty on par with things, and it has the possibility of stunning somebody. So then they have like his other upgrades and stuff, his defense mechanism. So you can basically, after you use a basic power, you can use his spider camouflage ability and his web warrior stuff, or I'm sorry, web shooter stuff still.
Okay, so Miles Morales and Peter Parker, man, okay. I personally don't think that Miles Morales is a stronger hero than Peter Parker. The 222 stat line that he was talking about, let me go back to the Miles Morales card here. So definitely I do agree that this is a better stat line than Peter Parker's stat line. I think 2 Thor is more valuable than having 1 Thor and Peter Parker's 3 defense. That being said, Miles is a hero where you want to use his basic activation a lot, right? You want him to thwart or attack, and you want to ready him up. With defense mechanism, where it's based on the activation, or it's after you make a basic activation, you can trigger that card, and it's the one that's stunned as well, the power within, right? For Peter Parker Spider-Man, it doesn't matter if you activate with him or not. I played so many games with Peter where I'm just exhausted the entire game because I have like an attachment that keeps me exhausted, and then my allies, supports, and upgrades are the things and ones that are doing all the thwart removal or damage that I need. So, and playing event cards. So I do think that Miles is a little bit more tied to having that 2 thwart and 2 attack than Peter. And they're very, very balanced in a way where I think Miles is similar to very similar to the Quicksilver and X-23 comparison is Miles Morales and Peter Parker. A lot of the newer heroes like Miles Morales, he's a lot stronger against easier villains. So I think if you're facing Rhino, Claw, Ultron's not easy, but he's still someone that can be stunned and confused. But like if you're facing those 3, I think Miles for sure has a way easier time with those guys than Peter Parker does. But in my experience, at least, against Ronin, against Venom Goblin, and against Magneto, I think that Peter Parker has a way easier time because he has that economy with Scientist in his Alter Ego form. He has his Spire Sense in his hero form to get that economy to really build out and set up his board where he can have the supports and upgrades and allies to do everything for him and doesn't need his basic activation as much as Miles. So I think they're both super duper strong heroes. And you guys know my bias, but I do think that Peter edges it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, having that one of the best defenses in the defensive kit, one of the best defensive kits in the game is what I mean to say. Just gives him so much versatility, especially added up with his economy to be able to just set up whatever board that you want and then completely dominate a scenario. So I think that the trend of Miles and Peter is very similar to the trend of X-23 and Quicksilver in that the new heroes are a lot stronger against scenarios that are easy, but against the tougher scenarios, they line up a lot more close to each other. Okay, let me see. And then I'm gonna skip the part. He also compares Venom to Peter Parker. I can't say too much as because I've never played Venom before, so I'm just gonna skip past that. Oh, I think he talks about Cable here too. Okay, here.
The times too, right? As they come up with more heroes and moving forward and whatever, they're going to improve upon older heroes. I even think when you look at who was it? Cable with Cyclops. Now they're very, very different, but they each borrow from the whole idea of like pulling in any ally you want with Cyclops, right? Versus Cable's like any of the side schemes.
Yeah, so Cable is very, very powerful.
So they're kind of recycling the idea. It'll be interesting. And then that's been recycled in the past. Like that's nothing new. But it'll be interesting to see if they really kind of like do more with that type of stuff. But yeah, those are the ones that kind of really stand out to me the most. Deadpool has his own thing, but again, uses life as a resource, but like he can't die. So I guess that's his hook.
Yeah, so like, I mean, obviously you guys know that Deadpool is very powerful, but at the same time, he has a lot of hard counters. I think that Ultron and Magneto, because of the concussive blast or the metal shards, they can easily wipe Deadpool out. And if Deadpool has to set up his board and try to survive, it makes it a lot more difficult for him because he can't trigger that, or you don't want to risk triggering the Regenerate Degenerate if you still know that there are Metal Shards or Concussive Blast in the encounter deck.
Ironheart actually is another, I think, decent one, but Ironheart feels different enough, which is kind of nice. So if you compare this to Iron Man, right, where Iron Man starts with one hand size, there's one hand size, but you can get up to 7 with the tech upgrades, right? So there's kind of this build out process. So he has a similar feel to Ironheart, right, where they're both trying to build out, but yet it's different, right? There's enough difference here that, okay, Ironheart, you gotta get the 6 progress counters, which you can get different ways, but you get them, you can go up to the next Ironheart, right? You go up to the next Ironheart, and then you can do 2 more, and then, or 6 more to get up to Ironheart stage 3, and she's a beast when she's stage 3. This is an example to me where it feels like they did roughly the same exact thing, but it feels different enough, right? So that's why I wanted to show this as well. I don't want it to just be straight like, oh, like anytime they redo it, like with Ironheart, that makes Iron Man obsolete. Because that's
Yeah, I think D20 is making a super duper good point here. Even though both Ironheart and Iron Man want to build out and like build their suit, they feel like completely different heroes. They both feel like they're building out their suit, right? Like thematically. But I mean, I think that the developers just did an amazing job making them feel not like each other at all. And I mean, Iron Man is still one of my favorite heroes to play to this day. I think he's super duper fun and thematic.
not the case. And again, I don't want to make it sound like Quicksilver's obsolete, but I do think it's kind of not a weird thing, but I think it's a thing worth kind of looking at and discussing is, are we getting to the point, especially in the more, especially when we start recommending this game to other people, are we getting to the point where we start not recommending older heroes as much, right? And I guess that's the bigger question to all of this.
Man, I will still recommend like the older heroes to this day. I mean, I've only played for about, I think like 8 months or something like that since last July, but I think that the core set heroes to this day are still one of the, I don't know, they're still the best heroes thematically, fun wise, and their power is like still great, right? Like I think that the core set heroes match up to any wave in terms of power tier ranking. I think that like if you look at Captain Marvel's cards, she has some of the worst cards in the game, right? Just I think it's like 2 cost her Thor removal card. It's 2 cost Crisis Intervention, 2 cost for removing 2 threat from a scheme, and if you have Aerial, you can remove I think 2 more from another scheme or something like that. So that's just terrible. And you need Aerial to get the full effect, which still isn't that good. And then she has her damaging card, the Photonic Blast. It's 3 cost for 5 damage, and you can draw a card. That's not very good because it's still, even though you're drawing that card, you're paying 3 up front. She has like some of the worst cards in her whole entire in the whole entire game in terms of hero specific cards. But despite that, Captain Marvel is still one of the strongest heroes because of her draw power, because of her actual hero card. So I mean, I think that she is so balanced in the game, even though she came out with the original core set. You guys know that I think that Spider-Man is still one of the strongest heroes. Iron Man is very powerful as well. And I do think that She-Hulk and Black Panther aren't as strong as the other 3. But I mean, they are still in the ranks of like a lot of the newer heroes that are coming out today. Like I think that, you know, She-Hulk and Black Panther are still in the same ranks as like, I don't know, Ghost Spider, Cyclops. Like I think there's a lot of heroes nowadays that are, every single wave has strong heroes and weaker heroes, and I think that there's always a balance, and the core set fits perfectly in that. And the core set doesn't have the strongest heroes in the game, but it also doesn't have the weakest heroes in the game. I think that the core set's heroes are like right in the middle in terms of like where they average out, which is very, very good. And then they have very simple mechanics. That's my favorite thing about the core set, is that the mechanics are so simple. Yeah, I think a lot of the newer heroes today, their kits are more, I think D20 hits on this as well, that they're more fleshed out, but it feels like that, so some are different, right? Like I think X-23 is a good example of a hero that's very, very fleshed out. Like there's a way that she wants to play with her readies, but depending on what aspect you use to play with her, she feels entirely different. But for the core set heroes, a lot of them, the aspect completely changes entirely how you want to play them. And Peter Parker's Spider-Man is one of the biggest examples of that, right? If you're playing him in protection, you pretty much don't want to flip. If you're playing him in Justice, where I like to play him, you want to flip like almost every turn. If you're playing him in leadership, you know, it's a lot more high tempo. I think that, and same with if you're playing him in aggression, right? So I think that, yeah, I mean, they just feel like the deck building can change more of the hero because they have such a simple bare bones kit. And for the newer heroes, it feels like a lot of times, and I can't speak on a lot of the heroes, right? But I know like, and I've heard the sentiment about Domino that it doesn't matter what aspect you're playing her because she's always going to be using her cards and she's going to be kind of doing her thing with looking at the top of the encounter deck, or not the encounter deck of the player deck, and manipulating it, and then milling cards and stuff like that. So I do feel like that a lot of the new heroes are more catered in how you want to play, and the direction is a little bit more clear. But at the same time, I love that simpleness from the core set heroes because I feel like it gives more diversity. And obviously, this is kind of a blanket statement where I do think that a lot of the core set heroes you do kind of want to play a certain way. Like Black Panther wants you to get those upgrades out to play his Wakanda Forevers, but you can kind of go against it a little bit. And then a lot of the newer heroes, like I think Cable is very, very unique. And if you play him in, well, no, actually Cable's not the best example because Cable still wants to get player size no matter what aspect you play with him. It's just that if you play him in aggression or justice or leadership, it does feel different. Even though he still wants to get that, he still wants to primarily get those sites in a victory display.
A lot of times on the Reddit or on the Discord or wherever, a lot of times what we see is like, hey, I just got into this game. What heroes should I get into? And people say, get the ones you're most interested in, whatever, whatever. But I do think there is something to be said that a lot of the newer heroes take some of the stuff the older heroes did and do it better, or at least different or more efficient. And this isn't always the case. Again, I want to make a blanket statement that all new heroes are better than old heroes. That's not the case. But I do feel like when we recommend this game to new people, like I get caught in this weird spot of, well, do I recommend the old ones because thematically they're fun, right? It's thematically fun to play as Spider-Man, like the original OG Spider-Man. I still think Miles Morales is a better version of him. And maybe people just like Miles more than Peter Parker version, which is cool. Then, kill two birds with one stone there. But if you really want Peter Parker, well, it's kind of weird to be like, well, I have to play Miles Morales then. And
I was so on board with him whenever he was saying that Peter Parker is super fun to play. Yeah, I mean, D20 is like one of the funniest guys ever. If you guys, I mean, I'm sure that everyone that's watching my channel is also watching D20, but if you aren't for any reason, definitely check him out. He's one of my favorite YouTubers. Just super duper chill guy. He has very, very fun streams as well.
And again, Miles Morales just feels like an improved upon version. It's the same with Iron Man and Iron Heart. And some people may look at it as like, well, why would I get Iron Heart? Because I already have Iron Man who works so well. And it's like, well, they do feel different, right? It does feel different. So I think this is just kind of again, open-ended question of how are you all approaching this? Or are you approaching it with, do you play the older heroes as much as the new ones, right? Kind of cult with the new stuff. Because I'm guilty of it. I play a lot of new ones. I go, they feel more refined. They feel better. They feel more balanced, more well put together. I guess I don't know the right way to put it. They just feel better to play. Some of the old core set heroes, some of the old like first wave heroes, like they're fun. There's some good ones in there, but some that could be a little clunky, right? They aren't as efficient as some of the new ones are. So anyway, when people ask me, what should I buy next? I always struggle with this because it's like, well, it depends on what you want. So that's why, again, I'm leaving this open to you all. What do you all recommend? What do you all tell people? And do you think that we're going to keep seeing this? I mean, we're seeing this a little bit, it looks like with Magic, and I haven't looked at Magic in a little while, but it is kind of playing on.
Oh man, so Magic is kind of a different beast. I think that Magic might possibly be one of the strongest heroes in the game, if not like taking over Doctor Strange. I'm hoping she has some weak attack events, because if her attack events are limited in her kit, then I think that would potentially give her room to not be the strongest hero in the game, but she looks super powerful.
Off of Mystic stuff and I think some other stuff they've already done. I think Cable's a bit different with how he's using the energy stuff, but I assume they'll keep pulling from older stuff to bring it into the new stuff. It just makes the most sense. But I want to know, I guess, one, is there any hero that's completely obsolete, you think, because there's a newer version of the hero? And like, again, you might play them now and again, but generally speaking, the hero's kind of obsolete now. Do you go back and play the old heroes a lot, or do you kind of stick with the newer ones now because you like the refinement of it? And then finally, how do you handle the recommendation question, right? Do you kind of recommend based off of, the name's a really big name, or do you base off of mechanics, or, just kind of give them all the information? Or do you do by aspect cards, which you've done series on the aspect cards before?
So I do want to comment on the aspect card part. So I think that if there is power creep in Marvel Champions, that would be through the aspect cards and like the basic cards that we've been given, right? But I think the really cool thing about that is that even though we've gotten newer cards, newer aspect cards, and they're stronger than the older aspect cards, like Forge Justice is still very good, but like, I don't know, then like Surveillance Team or something like that. Even though we've gotten stronger cards, the older heroes can still use those cards. That's the coolest thing about Marvel Champions, is that the hero kit itself, you can deck build with any of the newer cards. So as newer cards come out, a lot of the core set heroes become even stronger as well. So I think that is a very, very cool thing, and that's not necessarily indicative of power creep towards the heroes. You could make the argument that it's a power creep with the aspect cards, but even with that, I mean, I still think that the strongest card today is Nick Fury. And Nick Fury is an ally that came in the core set. And then Avengers Mansion. I know that a lot of people don't like Avengers Mansion as much anymore, but that's still one of my favorite cards. If you guys check out my decks, I'm almost always including Avengers Mansion in my deck. Not just for like the early game, right? I don't think Avengers Mansion is only good if you get out early. I think that it's good during any part of the game because you're getting a +1 hand size. So getting that one extra card might be the big factor of whether you can play an extra card that turn, having that extra resource or extra option. And I think that that can change a game. Like it can save your game and prevent you from losing, or it can help you win the game and make that final big push, whether it's early game or late game. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that there is that much power creep. Let's listen to
For hey, this is who you should buy based on the aspect card. Maybe that's a route to go as well. So anyway, those are my open thoughts. Let me know that in the comments. Really quick before you leave, if you haven't checked out my Patreon channel, go down below, click on Patreon, go check it out. You can join for free.
You guys should definitely check out his Patreon if you haven't already. I definitely advise that. And he said something earlier.
Game's a really big game. Are you based off of mechanics, or just kind of give them all the information, or do you do by aspect cards, which we've done series on aspect cards before?
Oh, how you recommend the game? So I mean, I don't think this is this topic isn't as interesting to me, like how you recommend the game than the power creep part. But just my opinion, when I recommend the game to new players, I just pick by whatever hero that whoever I'm recommending likes, right? So if someone loves Spider-Man, that would be like, you should play Spider-Man first. If they love Thor, then I'll just be like, you should play Thor first. I think a lot of it's hard to say because a lot of the older heroes are so simple. I feel like they're a little bit easier to play, but at the same time, the new heroes, because they're more focused, they're easier to play also in that way, in that you're not trying to decide what you want to do. So for newer players, I mean, that know what they want to do, I think the older heroes are more fun, and you can make those quick decisions anyways because you already know what you're going to do. But for newer players that aren't used to card games and aren't sure, like, should I do this or that, and are just kind of a little bit more indecisive, I think that the newer heroes are more fun because they kind of push you in that way, like, okay, you want to use these not the aspect cards, you want to use their hero identity specific cards. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on it. I love Marvel Champs. I think it's the greatest game, and I always talk about how the core set heroes are so relevant. I do want to give a shout out to Brant from Step in the Portal and Orest Gamba. I'm sorry if I messed up your name, but I've talked to these guys before about why Marvel Champs has no power creep. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think. If you guys agree or disagree with me, if you guys think that there is power creep, and definitely check out D20's original video if you guys haven't already. I'm pretty sure you guys have already if you're watching this video, but if you haven't, check it out. I think it's a very interesting topic and just a very good discussion point.